Hello, film freaks, and welcome to yet another episode of the Day in Film Minicast. Before we jump in, I have to ask that you like and subscribe. It really does mean the world to me. And, I'm just throwing these together after every movie I watch. But hey, as long as you're listening, I'm having fun. But let's jump right into the movie I watched today. I watched Spotlight from 2015, the Best Picture winner at the Oscars that year. And this is quite the movie. If you haven't seen Spotlight, I'm obliged to explain to you the story, or the real-life story that follows, or that this movie retells. Spotlight tells a story of the Boston Globe slowly uncovering what turned out to be a secret priest child molestation ring in the church, or in the Catholic Church. And so, we're just going to start right there because I don't know where to start with this movie. This is I'm sure it's a very controversial movie. I personally really enjoyed it, but we're just going to start from that. So it's it's almost like a media trope now that priests are, like, if a priest isn't being shown as like a guiding force or just like a flat good guy, then it's probably like a sort of weird underlying sexual like predator thing. And that's been a thing in a bunch of movies and shows that I've seen. It's a big thing in South Park. I know that show's like a big parody thing, but this is a very common thing. And I'm sure it didn't start from this, but I'm almost positive that this was one of the major influencing forces that started this stereotype, or that this general idea from. So Spotlight, this is a real story. This is something that really happened. The Boston Globe did indeed tell this story back in 2001, or the start of 2002, I want to say. So that's another thing that I want to talk about, because this movie starts in it must have been like May or March of 2001, and instantly, the second I saw the little date title card, I knew 9/11 was going to play a part in this movie. And it did. Or, well, not even in this movie, but just in real life. 9/11 was one of the reasons that this super important article was pushed back, and even more children and people were affected by this horrible ring that was going down in the Catholic Church. And this movie, in the story that it tells, and I'll tell you why right now, it reminded me a lot of Zodiac. This movie is a lot like Zodiac. They're both about journalists, and the main thing is that Mark Ruffalo's in it, but both of them have to do with real-life events that had very cloudy and difficult stories to tell, and that eventually would come to their conclusion at the end of a lot of hard work. And I don't know how accurate that Zodiac confirmation thing is, but this one is definitely real. This is a real newspaper you can probably still buy, or at least get a clipping of somewhere, and it's super impactful. I was watching this, and again, I went in knowing literally nothing about this case. I didn't know anything about, I didn't know anything about this ring that was supposedly in Boston. There was a lot that I just didn't know, and having it all unfold before my eyes was fascinating. I know it still happens now, but at least in my head, it feels like a much less common thing, mainly because of just more accessible social platforms, and, a kid's probably less likely to be quiet if he can comment on TikTok, not to get, morose about it, it's obviously still horrible, but I'm just saying it feels like but just an older thing, and watching it, again, unfold is very harrowing. I think the thing that makes it feel so real is the final scene, and this is kind of a spoiler, but it's a spoiler for real life, so who cares? At the very end of the movie, there is a slide that just says, here are all the churches that have confirmed sexual abuse activity from priests, and the list is 5 slides long of just full names, both in and outside of the United States, and it's horrible. I was sitting there with a knot in my stomach watching all the names pass by, and then you see that number, it was something like 1,200 priests have been convicted of these horrible crimes, and finding out that the bishop, or I think it was the bishop, in the area got off completely free. It just makes my skin boil. It makes me so mad. But to talk more about the movie specifically, it is great. The cast that they had for all of these characters fits incredibly well, I want to say. Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, Rachel McAdams, these are all very talented actors and actresses, and they all really fit the sleuthy spotlight crew role very well. And just to go back to that final slideshow, finding out that like the next 600 articles that the Spotlight wrote were just about this or just about like the aftermath of the original paper is unbelievable. It really does feel like a film that you could show in like almost like a history class instead of having to teach it, because this is everything. You know, it's from inside the church, it's from outside the church, it's from victim to victim, it's from a billion different things. It's fascinating. And a lot of it gets in your head, and even it gets into the characters' heads. You see how conflicted they are about not immediately going to the public with this information for safety, but instead fundamentally changing the way that the church works to prevent this. It is horrible and horrifying, and just it really does make you question just how they were able to get away with this so long. And in questioning that, you kind of do get an answer, even if it is not explicitly told to you. You can kind of fill it in for yourself. But I mean, I don't really have much more to say about this movie. Visually, it was very standard. The score was pretty good. Technically, it looked very clean, but it wasn't like stylistically super interesting. A lot of the nice moments of the film were just how pretty Boston looks, or the Boston Globe, the headquarters, just looks very nice. But I don't have much more to say. I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. Excellent movie. Definitely check it out. It is on Stars, if you have Stars. Who has Stars? But yeah, I don't have much more to say. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the theaters.